On This Week in Enterprise Tech, we have Mrs. Heather Williams, Mr. Brian Chee, and Mr. Curtis Franklin on the show today. We have a co-host, Stack Deck. That's right. Now we've talked about supply chain attacks in the past. You may have just seen the tip of the iceberg there because, maybe there is a solution. We'll definitely discuss that. Plus, you shouldn't miss the co-host roundtable. We have Wi-Fi, network, and security experts on the show here, and they're going to give us the current state of wireless in the industry. That's right. You shouldn't miss it. TWiT on the set.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is TWiT.
This is TWiT, This Week in Enterprise Tech, episode 459, recorded September 3rd, 2021, 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi Ghetto. This episode of This Week in Enterprise Tech is brought to you by Bitwarden. Get the password manager that offers a robust and cost-effective solution that can drastically increase your chances of staying safe online. Get started with a free trial of a Teams or Enterprise plan, or get started for free across all devices as an individual user at bitwarden.com/twit. And by IT Pro TV. If you're interested in a career in IT, you need to learn the fundamentals and make sure your certs are up to date. IT Pro TV is the best place to learn IT for Microsoft, AWS, Linux, and more. Visit itpro.tv/enterprise for an additional 30% off all consumer subscriptions for the lifetime of your active subscription when you use code Enterprise30 at checkout. And by Worldwide Technology and Intel. With an innovative culture, thousands of IT engineers, application developers, unmatched labs, and integration centers for testing and deploying technology at scale, WWT helps customers bridge the gap between strategy and execution. To learn more about WWT, visit wwt.com/twit. Welcome to TWiT, This Week in Enterprise Tech, the show that is dedicated to you, the enterprise professional, the IT pro, and the geek who just wants to know how this world is connected. I'm your host, Louis Maresca, your guide through this big world of the enterprise. But I definitely can't guide you by myself. I need to bring the professionals, the experts in their field, starting with very own Heather Williams. She's our wireless expert, and she's living the startup life. Great to have you back on, Heather. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be back.
Now, how is the startup life treating you? Keeping you busy?
I think I've made this joke before, but that thing that people call free time, not familiar with that concept these days, but it's great. I love it.
Fantastic. Well, speaking of busy, he's busy as well. He's our network and security expert and an all-around tech geek, Mr. Brian Chee, net architect at Sky Fiber. Cheebert, how are you, my friend? And what kind of projects and trouble are you getting into this week?
Well, I'm actually taking a really hard look at some software that our friendly editor Victor told me about, and Mr. Ant backed me up. I've just been trying to do more CAD work, to do 3D CAD and so forth. And, having vector art to start with is a pretty big deal, but I just didn't want to go and, on my retirement income, blow money on Creative Cloud and finding alternatives. So got to recommend, if you're getting into 3D CAD or something, take a look at Hands-On Photography. Ant has been covering some amazing products and like it a lot. Thanks, Ant.
Good
my pleasure.
Good suggestion. Yeah, absolutely. Take a look. Now, we have a stacked co-host panel today. That's right. We have also our enterprise and security expert. He's a senior analyst at Omdia, and he's Mr. Curtis Franklin. Curtis, great to see you, my friend. What's keeping you busy this week?
Oh, it's great to be here, Lou, as always. And I am doing a lot of research these days, looking at areas in next generation SIM products, looking at awareness, education, and training products, and starting to get ready for the IWCE conference coming up later this month in Las Vegas. So plenty to keep me busy here in the rainy Central Florida summer.
And well, speaking of busy, we had quite the busy week in the enterprise, and we got a lot of show topics to talk about today. Now, we talked about supply chain attacks on the show before. Well, we might just see the tip of the iceberg here, unless there's a solution. We'll have to discussion about that. Now, if you're wondering if you're getting the performance you need out of your organization's Wi-Fi, or maybe the new standards are out in production and you want to know what an upgrade looks like, or maybe your organization needs bigger, more reliable wireless pipe. What is the state of Wi-Fi and wireless technology in organizations in the enterprise today? Well, we're looking to cover these questions and more with the full gamut of our co-host knowledge base. So sit tight, because we have lots and lots to talk about in the coming future here. But first, like we always do, let's go ahead and jump into this week's news blips. Now, you've seen AI becoming more and more ubiquitous over the last couple of years. We've also seen AI developing new solutions in software and services that are more inventive than what the market has to offer today. The question is, can AI developed inventions be patentable? Or even more controversial question, should artificially intelligent machines be able to patent their own inventions? Well, for a U.S. federal judge, the larger implications of that question were irrelevant. In April 2020, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office ruled that only, quote unquote, natural persons should be credited as a patent inventor. A U.S. court decided this week that, yes, that's what the law technically says. Now, not every country out there agrees with that direction. In fact, South Africa and Australia decided to go the other direction, granting one patent and reinstating a second patent application filed by AI researcher Stephen Thaler, whose AI system Davos reportedly came up with a flashing light and a new type of food container. Now, he's part of the group called the Artificial Inventor Project that's actually lobbying for AI recognition around the globe. Now, the latest court decisions boil down to the quote, the following. The U.S. Patent Act says inventors must be, quote, individual. Previous legal decisions have clarified that individuals have to be people, not saying companies. And it's also pretty clear from the context that the Patent Act referred to people and that the AI systems are, quote, not people. And now the more obvious question comes to mind, what if the AI system owner claims that the idea is really their own? Think about that one.
Well, the U.S. Cyber Command is warning of an ongoing mass exploitation of critical Confluence vulnerability. On the heels of an advisory earlier this week from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, and the FBI about the potential for widespread ransomware attacks over the upcoming Labor Day weekend, U.S. Cyber Command today warned of ongoing and spreading attacks in the wild, exploiting a vulnerability in the Confluence workspace software platform. Now, for those of you who don't know, Workspace is big in the SecOps world. So if you are deep into SecOps and development, take heed. The mass exploitation of Atlassian Confluence, CVE 2021-26084, is ongoing and expected to accelerate. Please patch immediately if you haven't already. This cannot wait until after the weekend. That's what the U.S. Cyber Command was posting on its Twitter feed earlier today. CISA also issued an alert today urging organizations to install the patches immediately. Now, on August 25th, Atlassian issued an update for the remote code execution flaw, but attackers appear to be winning the race with organizations that haven't yet applied that patch. The object graph navigation language injection vulnerability could let an authenticated user and an unauthenticated user run arbitrary code on a Confluence server or data center instance. That's according to the company. The lesson here, if you're running Confluence, plan to spend some time on your holiday weekend updating your code.
Putting the organization in organized crime. An article published today in Dark Reading provides details about one of the treasures discovered last month when a malcontent associate of the Conti ransomware group leaked the location of a server that not only controlled compromised machines, it contained more than 100 meg of tools and documents. One of those documents is a detailed tutorial that gives a valuable insight into a cybercriminal syndicate's operations. The playbook lowers the cost of entry into cybercrime by giving low-level affiliates of Conti instruction on the use of popular tools like Cobalt Strike, Mimikatz, and PowerShell to infect systems and find exploits for common vulnerabilities for a cut of the profits. It creates a knowledge base for these low-level affiliates who are used as the first line of attack and maximizes their business model, which relies on the quantity of participants. The Conti ransomware group was responsible for a number of headlines just in the last year, including an attack on the federal court in Louisiana, which took the court's website offline, at least 16 attacks against healthcare and first responder networks, and millions of dollars in damages suffered by companies and organizations. The playbook, which was translated from Russian by the Cisco Talis group, is evidence of how well organized the operations are for Conti. They have a standard set of procedures and solid documentation and knowledge of how to wage widespread ransomware campaigns. The benefit to teams that are tasked with defending networks is that this document can be studied and used to conduct threat modeling and red team exercises to ensure that they're protected against Conti's strategies. So like Patton did with Rommel a century ago, I suggest you read the book. On a happier note, there is still no honor among thieves. This trove of leaked documents and tools was made possible by a disgruntled affiliate after being paid only $1,500 for their part in an attack, proving once again that you ignored the insider threat at your peril.
So this story is about a new script that makes it easy-ish to put Windows 10 or 11 onto a Raspberry Pi. Now, installing the ARM versions of Windows 10 or Windows 11 onto an inexpensive Raspberry Pi board has been possible for quite a while, but it's always required more than a little time and patience. But there's a new script, if you're curious, called WOR-Flasher, and that translates to Windows on Raspberry, and it simplifies the entire process. WOR-Flasher has a simple user interface that can create ARM Windows install media, which then can be booted up on a Raspberry Pi for installation in the same way that a USB stick created with Microsoft tools can install Windows on an x86 PC. The script's creator argues that it violates no laws or Windows licensing agreements since it downloads all its code directly from Microsoft servers and installs Windows in an unlicensed deactivated state, just as it would install on a regular x86 PC without a product key. Microsoft only sells licenses of the ARM versions of Windows to OEMs, which is kind of a bummer. Lou, you need to fix that. WOR-Flasher has officially been tested using the 32-bit version of the Raspberry Pi OS, and that's what the author used to create some install media. But it should run without issue on Debian-based Linux distributions, according to the story. Now, in my mind, this makes this significant for the enterprise in that being able to install Windows onto small, inexpensive computers to embed things like print servers, environmental monitoring tools, and many other Windows-based embedded systems without the need to learn how to harden Linux is a win. Translated, this is lowering the entrance requirements for embedded tools, and it occurs to me that really cool tools like the Path Solutions VoIP Simulator could potentially be tossed onto a Pi and thrown into a local telecom or data closet so that network measurements can be made closer to the edge, but not requiring that you toss an extra piece of hardware onto an employee's desk.
Now, for all Docker's container technology popularity, Docker, the company, has its problems. Now, first, Docker tried trouble finding a working business plan. Then Docker ran short of funds. And in late 2019, it seems it solved both problems, but by selling its Docker Enterprise product line and business to Maresca. But unable to catch a break, Docker was dropped from Kubernetes. Now, that wasn't much of a problem as it sounds, but it still left users concerned about Docker. Now, in another attempt to revitalize its business, Docker is restricting the use of the free version of its desktop, Docker Desktop, to individuals, small businesses, and non-commercial open source projects. Now, all others must pay for a subscription. Now, Docker Desktop is an integrated development environment for Macs and Windows, and enables developers to build and share containerized applications and microservices on Kubernetes and Linux. Now, under this new approach, Docker's free plan is now called, quote, quote, personal. Now, if your business has 250 people or employees or more or higher than $10 million in revenue, you must be a paid subscription for Docker Desktop. Now, before screaming and running away, keep in mind that the Docker engine, the upstream open source Docker, nor the Moby project haven't been touched here. Now, there is a problem with Docker's new usage permissions. By the open source definition, any open source program can be commercial. Now, the billing changes theoretically take effect on August 31st. Now, in reality, you have till January 31st, 2022 to use Docker Desktop freely. If under the new rules, you'll need a paid subscription to keep using Docker Desktop. Now, Docker has started a new microservices revolution out there. And the question is, with the new changes, will organizations jump to a new solution? We shall see. Well, folks, that does it for the blips. Next up, we get deeper into this week's news bites. But first, we have to thank a really great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and that's Bitwarden. Now, Bitwarden is the only open source cross-platform password manager that can be used at home, at work, or on the go, and it's trusted by millions. Now, empower your employees to follow password management best practices. Now, with Bitwarden, you can securely store credentials across personal and business worlds. Every Bitwarden account begins with the creation of a personal vault. Use Bitwarden for your business. It's fully customizable. It adjusts features using enterprise policies to adapt to your business needs. Plus, use Bitwarden Send, a fully encrypted method to transmit sensitive information, whether text or files, directly to anyone. It's really easy to use too. Now, team members can generate unique and secure passwords for every site. You'll get enterprise-grade security that's also GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA, and SOC 2 compliant. Now, their end-to-end encrypted vaults helps mitigate phishing attacks by storing passwords and more. Now, you can do even more with Bitwarden Enterprise plans. Some of their new features include admin password reset. Now, enterprise organizations can enroll in an admin password reset to allow designated administrators to actually reset forgotten user passwords. Very useful there. Master password reprompt is another one. Use the new master password reprompt option to actually require verification of your master password to view sensitive vault items as designated by the user. Now, are you interested in a business plan? Well, Bitwarden has plans that will work for you. Their team's organization option is $3 a month per user, where you can share private data securely with your coworkers, department, or entire organization. Now, for enterprises, use Bitwarden's enterprise organization plan for just $5 a month per user. Now, this free organization plan includes 2 users who can store and share secure passwords. Bitwarden believes that everyone should have access to basic password security tools. In fact, individuals can use their basic free account forever for an unlimited number of passwords, or upgrade anytime to their premium account for less than $1 a month. And if you're looking for secure password storage for your entire family, well, their family organization option gives up to 6 users premium features for only $3.33 a month. Using the Bitwarden cloud, you can get started in no time. Monitor and manage your security vulnerabilities using the Bitwarden Vault health reports. Identify exposed, reused, weak, or even potentially compromised passwords, as well as any items in your vault with inactive 2FA. Get started with a free Teams or Enterprise trial of a Teams or Enterprise plan at bitwarden.com/twit, or try it for free across devices as an individual user. That's bitwarden.com/twit. And we thank Bitwarden for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Well, folks, it's time for the news bites. Now, this first one's interesting. Now, from a hacker perspective, supply chain attacks seem to be pretty much a no-brainer, right? Whether organizations are open source, developing in public in their repos, or using components and libraries that are open source, they are all susceptible to simple supply chain attacks. However, think about using components from a reputable organization maybe that could have been compromised, right? Think about that. You're paying them for their capabilities, their components, software, or libraries that provides, but deep down in the source code and the binary, they've delivered a sleeper Easter egg that just might shut you down one day. Well, Epic software supply chain attacks over the past year, including the high-profile breaches of SolarWinds, Microsoft Exchange Server, Kaseya, Code Cove, might just be only the beginning here. That's right. At a recent talk at Black Hat, Matt Tate, Chief Operating Officer of Corellium, called for software platform vendors and security researchers to do their part to start preventing the fallout of software supply chain compromises. He warned there will be more. That's right. And they could wreak more extensive and widespread damage to even more organizations if the attackers hit larger targets with massive customer bases, such as the recent theft of source code from gaming giant EA Games. A quote from him says, when a nation state or cybercrime organization makes that leap and infiltrates more victims, it will no longer be a sustainable solution or situation. He also outlined some of the themes he was seeing in some of the major supply chain attacks that were out there this past year or several years, in fact. Now, think about some of these. The intrusions cause really big physical real-world challenges, such as the temporary interruption in gasoline disruption after Colonial Pipeline's ransomware attack, and many were driven by supply chain compromises. Number two, several were about stolen 0 days. Think about that. And over the last year, number three, a major increase in the number of 0-day exploits are out there. Now, one thing he did point out, as bug bounties are at their high and we're having more researchers finding 0 days, they are highly impacted, that are actually highly impactful. They are the targets as well. Now, one of the big issues and the nature of supply chain is that they produce network effects with hard to predict second and third and even N order effects. Question is, what's the fix? Tate said that the only way to maximize or minimize these supply chain attacks is for software platform vendors to, quote, fix the underlying technology. Good question here. I think so. I want to bring my co-host back in because the question is it really the vendor's job to constantly be fixing these things? Obviously, they're going to continue to fix security vulnerabilities, but there's always older software, older services that might, they might have upgraded, moved to a different platform or moved on to a different product that they might not be able to maintain over time, but organizations want to continue using them. So the question is it really the job or is it really the only solution for vendors to fix this problem? I want to throw this to Curt first because he's knee deep in enterprise. Is this what the enterprise organizations out there are looking for? Are they looking for the platform vendors to fix this, or is there another way?
Well, here's the problem. When you say supply chain, that covers a lot of territory, ranging from the pieces of stuff that go into the things you make to the bits and pieces of software that you use to build your applications. Now, in the IT industry, most of the time, we're going to be talking about software. So let's think about that for a moment. We all know that most applications today are really more constructed than written. You pull bits and pieces from various open source projects, from libraries that you might buy, and you put them together with your own glue code and out pops an application. So the question is, how much are your suppliers responsible for making sure that they're delivering top quality, error-free, bug-free, vulnerability-free code? That's the real answer. And the answer is no one knows. Most open source projects, for example, especially the large ones, are pretty good at keeping up with their vulnerabilities. But what about the vulnerabilities in the things that they use to build their application? What we're finding is that chasing down dependencies becomes a 3, 4, 5 N layer problem. And it's down there when you get into the 6th, 7th, and 8th layers that you find these subtle vulnerabilities, often in projects that have a single maintainer and a small group of people contributing, that create the 0 days that ultimately make the headlines. So the response is, the responsibility is ultimately on you and your organization to make sure that everything you are using works. Now, that means doing everything from static code analysis to sophisticated error checking. It's a pain. It's expensive. But in most cases, it's going to be much less expensive than cleaning up after all of your employee records have been released to the dark web. So it's a tough problem, and it's going to be a continuing problem as long as we make software the way we're making it today. And to be brutally honest, I don't see that model changing anytime soon.
Right. Cheeber, what do you think? This is not the first rodeo for supply chain attacks, right?
Oh, no. Supply chain attacks go all the way back to the days of Captain Crunch and phone phreaking. One of the demonstrations that Captain Crunch did was he actually used the Captain Crunch whistle and a payphone sitting in the middle of Times Square, and he actually ordered a spool of cable from Ma Bell to be delivered at the corner that he was standing on. So the attacks happened. Now, keep in mind, back in the day of mainframes and minis, you had a single vendor writing everything, and the libraries and so forth that were used were actually very, very thoroughly vetted. So unless we go back to that model, there's going to be a lot of things that can happen. And like Curt's saying, there's a lot of moving parts, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11 layers of dependencies. And unless we go back to something like mainframes, there's a lot of things that need to get fixed. And so one of the things that I want to bring up is, we're going to have to do something. There are software vendors that go and vet the entire dependency chain. They are very rare. Personally, I think this might be something that we need to start taking a good hard look at. And also maybe, just maybe, we need to also be more realistic. I helped bring in and fix a bunch of old pieces of equipment that were based on Windows 95. And they said, well, we don't want to have to pay for the new version. I go, well, you're paying for it anyway, because you're paying me a lot of money and I'm being paid by the hour to fix something that is 10 years old now. So users need to be more realistic. If you're going to drag along a decade-old system, you're going to have to take some of the responsibility for not maintaining it, because part of the maintenance process is we're going to have to upgrade. Microsoft isn't going to support Windows 95 anymore. Same thing goes for applications. So we need to be more reasonable. Otherwise, supply chain is never going to get fixed.
Agreed. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to use a software coming from 1995, but that's just me. Now, Heather, I want to throw this to you too, because obviously this supply chain attack vulnerabilities they exist everywhere, including in the wireless world. Now, like Wi-Fi controllers or open source networking tools, they're all susceptible, right?
Well, I'm not dumb enough to say no. Our stuff isn't hackable. Everything is susceptible. But I think Brian brings up a really good point. Back in the day, this is the way you could secure things. But back in the day, we were using a mainframe to do something that was fairly predictable. It was doing something it was designed to do. Now we have all of these interdependencies. So, for instance, when I was with a Wi-Fi vendor, we made and produced enterprise Wi-Fi equipment. We did not make and produce anything that was being used on that network. So the interdependency is everything that's jumping on my network. The number of things that have been done just within the Wi-Fi protocol to kind of mitigate poor behaving clients and try to get them to behave in the way that we needed them to, just to make the protocol function is mind-boggling. And it's beyond whack-a-mole. And I think it goes back to something that Curt said earlier about to the nth degree of all of this stuff being layered together. But then you look at Wi-Fi vulnerabilities that have come out. The most recent in memory were, of course, the crack one back in 2017. But then the frag attacks from earlier this year that we did a thing on. Everybody's looking at the vendors. They're yelling at Cisco and Aruba and Mist and Juniper Why aren't you addressing a large number of those vulnerabilities weren't on the vendor equipment, it was on the actual client. So now you've got to go play whack-a-mole with every Apple, Android, and other Wi-Fi. Don't even get me started on devices, which were never, most of them never even meant to be upgradable or addressable. So how do you mitigate those problems? I tell you, I just get tired thinking about it.
I agree. I think that it's a challenge here. I mean, you bring up a good point, interdependency. Now, Curtis, I'm going to throw this back to you for the last thought, and then we got to move to our roundtable because we got a lot of great topics there. Obviously, interdependencies are a challenge here, and you have large software packages like, for instance, VMware Sphere or large software application platforms that are actually using some of these these networking tools or these open source tools that are susceptible to things like supply chain hacks. Question is, these application platforms, are they going to have to go and start putting in fixes for potential third-party tooling like that? Or are they going to look to the third-party vendors to make this problem go away? Where does it end? What do organizations to do here?
Well, when you have a situation like that, you have three options for securing it. Option one is for the end user organization to get some sort of tech fix, some sort of piece of software that will layer security on top of whatever vulnerable software they're running. Step two is for the vendor who is selling directly to that end user organization, in your case, VMware, the instance you gave, for them to provide software within their framework that will shield the user organizations from the vulnerabilities that they know exist. And the third option is for the original authors of the vulnerable software, which is often an open source project, to take care of the vulnerabilities. Now, depending upon exactly which software we're talking about, these come in varying levels of certainty. Ultimately, it's the responsibility of you and your users to make sure that whatever you're operating within your organization is secure. So if you can't be 100% certain that the applications and the frameworks and the platforms and everything else have patches out for every known vulnerability, then you've got to go and find a third-party solution for protecting against the vulnerabilities. At the same time, you've got to put pressure on the vendor who is selling you the system, and it's up to them to make the decision either to put pressure on those open source projects or the commercial libraries if they're using them, or to find alternatives. I mean, this all goes down the stream in the supply chain, and there's no single answer. If you're in IT security for the end user organization, though, you better believe that from the executive board's perspective, the buck stops with you.
Agreed. Well, folks, I would say that ends the Bytes fairly well because some really great information there. Thank you, Curtis. Well, it's coming up. We have a really great roundtable. We're going to go through the state of wireless, especially for your organization. But before we get to that, we do have to thank another great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and that is IT Pro TV. Now, you're looking to get your career in IT or go further in your IT positions? Well, IT Pro TV is the best place to learn IT and update your certifications. That's right. With 7 studios and over 1,500 hours of IT training, which creates the perfect environment for you to learn IT. September's theme at IT Pro TV is all about Microsoft. They will be featuring more than 800 hours of Microsoft content. They will also have a free weekend. That's right, September 18th to September 19th. That includes PowerShell and Azure training. Now, IT Pro TV is a Microsoft expert and can make you one too. Now, check out their courses on MTA Windows Operating System Fundamentals, the 98349. Also, they have MTA Security Fundamentals, 98367, and Microsoft Azure. That's right, AZ500, and so many many more. Now, the best part about IT Pro TV is their edutainers. That's right. They are actually making learning IT interesting and super fun. And you'll get the most up-to-date information while preparing for exams with brand new content from the studio to their course library within 24 hours. And IT Pro TV values your time. Courses are divided into 20 to 30-minute episodes with searchable transcripts. Makes it super easy. Now, edutainers are on staff and available every day if you need assistance there. Now, they are the official video training partner for CompTIA. IT Pro TV's courses are live and on demand worldwide via your Chromecast, your Roku, Apple TV, PC, or their iOS or Android applications. Makes it real easy to get to. Now, learn anytime from the comfort of your own home and on your own schedule. Now, if you're interested in a career in IT and you need to learn the fundamentals and make sure your certs are up to date, go to itpro.tv/enterprise and use code enterprise30 to receive 30% off all consumer subscriptions. That's itpro.tv/enterprise and use the code enterprise30 for an additional 30% off the lifetime of your active subscription. IT Pro TV, build or expand your IT career and enjoy the journey. And we thank IT Pro TV for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Well, folks, we now have a really special part of the show today. We're going to have a co-host roundtable here, and we're going to talk a little bit about what the current state of wireless is in the world and in the organizations out there. There's a lot of questions out there, obviously. Like, for instance, what is Wi-Fi 6 taking us? Should we upgrade? I just talked to somebody the other day. They have a bunch of warehouses that they maintain in their business and organization. And sometimes those warehouses, their Wi-Fi goes out. So what happens there? They have to have a backbone of some kind, a backup backbone, like, for instance, cellular. Is it good enough? What is some of the solutions out there? So I want to bring all the co-hosts back in here. And Heather, I want to start with you first, because you are knee deep or your shoulders deep, maybe head deep in wireless technology today. What's the current state? Where do you think things are going? What should organizations be looking for?
Well, I think there's a couple of things, and I want to draw a distinction really quick when we say, unfortunately, the Wi-Fi Alliance went to this stupid nomenclature. They've changed from easily understood letters and numbers, 11A, 11 AC, AX. And so now we have this new numbering system. So you're talking about Wi-Fi 6. That's what Wi-Fi engineers refer to as 11AX. So, and then there's Wi-Fi 6E, which has, unfortunately, because it's using the 6 gigahertz range, is even more confusing. So we have Wi-Fi 6, which is 11AX, which has been out, and 11E, and then 6E, which is this new range, this new RF range that we're getting access to, and a whole new set of channels. And so they're different, and I really want to talk about the two of them separately. We've talked on the show about Wi-Fi 6, even last year. I would say that back then, even though, I'm sorry, I forgot, it was Groundhog Year last year. We actually were talking about it in 2019, because I remember I was in the studio, and I made this great prognostication that Wi-Fi 6 adoption was going to come faster even than the previous adoptions, 11N, 11AC. And who knew what was going to happen in 2020? So we really haven't seen that. So in addition to the generalized slowdown that we had with just the whole COVID thing, we've also had this supply chain problem. And so what drives adoption of Wi-Fi is not the enterprise appliances being out there. The access points have been available for 2 years now, as hard as it is to believe. The client side is where we're not seeing. It's been a lot slower to develop. So if you are interested in seeing what devices are out there and what protocols they support, there's a really good website maintained by Mike Albano from Cisco, I believe, and he keeps that, updates that periodically. So we're still not seeing enough 11AX access client side to drive enterprises into, or even home. Home users probably upgraded already because they frankly just don't know. They're out there with their 11N, single band clients trying to get these advertised rates, but that's a whole nother story. On the opposite side, or in addition to this, we have the 6E, and that's going to be revolutionary. I mean, that one, well, I don't want to overstate it. We get a little giddy about it because we get all of this new spectrum, and people go around telling you, oh, we get 59 new channels, which is enough to make a Wi-Fi engineer just salivate and drool all over themselves. But that comes with a caveat too, because it's 59 channels if you're doing low power and you're in the United States. Only the EU has also gone to this 6E, and they've only done some of it. Other countries haven't really quite jumped on board yet. So once again, I think it's going to be the United States that's going to be pushing 6E, and that's going to be what's going to give us things like, I'm giving myself a chance to be proven wrong again. It's going to give us a chance to see the ubiquitous muni networks, downtown areas, citywide Wi-Fi, the free Wi-Fi that's run by a county or a city. I'm really looking forward to it. This is we're in Groundhog Year Part 2 this year, and so it still feels like a lot of things are moving through oatmeal, and it's not going quite the rate that we expect or would have thought that things would be. But we're going to get there, and there really are going to be some big advantages that we've already seen. Rural areas and across the U.S. that the need for broadband ubiquitously everywhere is only going to drive this more.
Right. Chee, what about you? I mean, you do a lot of network, implementations and installs, and you kind of understand a lot of this as well. What are you seeing, comparatively to what Heather's talking about here?
Well, one of the things I'm really seeing now is let's put a point on this. The antennas for embedded Wi-Fi devices stink. They're teeny tiny little traces on the circuit boards. Now, and if you could do me a favor and go to that URL, it's from mouser.com. It is basically a shopping list of all kinds of Wi-Fi devices that you can take a lot of the effort out. It's certified by the FCC for use as an embedded device. You still have to get your device certified again, but hobbyists can actually buy these things from mouser.com, throw it into their device, and now all of a sudden it's Wi-Fi enabled. Now, it's not just Wi-Fi. It's also going a little further, and that it's got a lot of intelligence on it to be able to handle the setup and management of the device. Now, okay, this is on the good side. I love that this is happening. We can start putting Wi-Fi into all kinds of devices, but a lot of these are old. A lot of the really inexpensive ones, especially the ones from China, are still only 802.11bg, much less any of the new devices coming out in the world of 6. So there's going to be a lot of stuff. So I wanted to kind of call this whole episode, how many Wi-Fi, or what's in your Wi-Fi pocket, or something like that. The reality is Curt and I had a conversation, I want to say almost a decade ago, maybe more, that the estimate we got when we were doing an InfoWorld article on wireless was that people had upwards of 7 wireless devices or Wi-Fi devices on them at all times, especially students. I got a sneaky hunch that number's gone up, because now you have Wi-Fi devices for TVs, you have Wi-Fi devices for thermostats, you have Wi-Fi devices for refrigerators, for goodness sakes. It's going to get more and more, but the problem is a lot of these devices aren't as easily upgraded as they really should be, especially the really cheap stuff. So while I love that 6E is coming, and I love that 6 is doing some nice things, I wish the designers would build a little more flexibility into their embedded devices, because the lag time to catch up for embedded devices are sometimes to the point of you got to throw it away and start over. So, Heather, you're looking at all kinds of stuff. And when you were with Ruckus, you saw a lot of this. Are the numbers really going up? And are we still getting a ball and chain of old embedded Wi-Fi devices that are still 802.11bg?
Yeah, actually, it's both worse and better than what you've described. And I like to just froth at the mouth about IoT devices, so they're like kind of the bane of my existence. So you're right that I think the number of devices we have in our hands, especially in having learned to live with lockdown and things like that, has actually gone down. But it's the other little things, the wearables, and everything is connected to the network in your house, which is, of course, where a lot of us live these days. I mean, not just live, we do everything there. And this goes back to some of the supply chain things that we were talking about earlier. It leaves an inherent vulnerability into your network. However, there's just the part where I'm going to say you're a little bit wrong. With 6E, you're right. None of those things are probably ever going to be on 6E, except for that just as soon as I said that, I realized, of course, that's what these IoT guys are going to do, because the low power for Wi-Fi 6E is going to mean that it's going to be mostly inside the low power option. And it's when that's the place where we have those 59 channels, and those guys are just going to squat all over all of these beautiful channels that could be used to solve the problem for the MDU and density things. The beautiful thing about 6E is we get something that we've never had before in Wi-Fi. So we've got this brand new bit of spectrum. We haven't had new spectrum in a very long time. But this brand new bit of spectrum, because it's brand new and nothing's ever been there, we don't have to be backwards compatible, which means if these client vendors would kind of collectively get together and agree that only the high end, your laptops and things that really need the speeds should use that 6E, we can keep that beautiful, clean 59 channels for the US at least, free and uncluttered, and just go ahead and seed the 2.4 gig to whatever crappy washing machine needs to update China about how much laundry soap I'm using or whatever. So I think that there's some really good use cases. And I think that once we start getting this, the chip shortage solved and we start getting clients out there, this can really be used to solve real problems with getting high-speed connectivity more ubiquitously out there.
I agree. We'll talk a little bit more about, we have a lot more to talk about here. So but when we come back, but before we do have to thank another great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and that's Worldwide Technology and Intel. Now, WWT is at the forefront of innovation, working with clients all over the world to transform their businesses. Now, at the heart of WWT lies their Advanced Technology Center, or the ATC. Now, the ATC is a research and testing lab that brings together technologies from leading OEMs. There's more than $500 million in equipment invested in that lab. Now, the ATC offers hundreds of on-demand and schedulable labs featuring solutions that include technologies like Intel Xeon scalable processors, Intel Optane persistent memory, Optane SSDs, and others representing the newest advances in multi-cloud architecture, security, networking, primary and secondary storage, data analytics, and AI, DevOps, and so much more. Now, WWT's engineers and partners use the ATC to quickly spin up proofs of concept and pilots so customers can confidently select the best solutions. Now, this helps cut evaluation time from months to weeks. Now, with the ATC, you can test out products and solutions before you go to market. Access technical articles, expert insights, demonstration videos, white papers, hands-on labs, and other tools that help you stay up to date with the latest technology. Now, not only is the ATC a physical lab space, but WWT has also virtualized it. That's right. Members of their ATC platform can actually access these amazing resources anywhere in the world, 365 days a year. Now, while exploring the ATC platform, make sure to check out WWT's events and communities for more opportunities to learn about technology trends and hear the latest research and insights from their experts. Whatever your business need, WWT can deliver a scalable, tried and tested, tailored solutions. WWT brings strategy and execution together to make a new world happen. To learn more about WWT, the ATC, and gain access to all their free resources, visit wwt.com/twit and create an account on their ATC platform. That's wwt.com/twit. And we thank Worldwide Technology and Intel for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Well, folks, let's get back to the panel because we have a lot to talk about the current state of wireless. I want to throw this back to Curtis because obviously there's a lot of use cases for a lot of these new standards, right?
Oh, there are. And I absolutely agree with Heather that what we really need are to let the high demand, high bandwidth, critical user, human-oriented devices stay on all those nice, wonderful, fast, big, fat, but short bandwidths. Because we can pack the offices full of all the APs we need to make sure that the frequencies that don't punch through walls don't have to. And in the meantime, we can leave the 2.4 gig for the applications that, frankly, the new higher frequency standards just can't address. You know, I was remembering one that I was peripherally involved with way back when. At the University of Florida, there is a large radio telescope that is about 30 miles away from the main campus. Well, they put an 802.11b Yagi antenna on top of a building and shot line of sight straight out to the radio telescope. So they had a Wi-Fi connection between the two. That's a 25-mile shot, and that's not anything that, even 5.8 gig is going to do happily, especially in a place like Florida with all the water vapor we have in the air. So I like the idea of having multiple standards for multiple use cases. Does that make your life a little bit more complex when you are putting together your wireless infrastructure? Sure, it does. But the fact is that you should probably have all of those different use cases on different VLANs already. So in a way, putting them on different physical networks just makes your security and packet shaping life a little bit easier.
So, Chee, what do you think? I think that, I'll actually throw this to Heather first. I want to understand what's going to happen with 6E. Is this going to create a bigger digital divide here?
Actually, I think that there's a chance. And again, I'm either going to be Cassandra or a complete idiot here, depending on how things pan out. But I think there's a chance that 6E can actually help bridge the digital divide. And I'll tell you how. So I was talking about the 59 channels that 6E is going to bring us. That's only in the US, and that's only for indoor low power. To get the full outdoor, the full power for outdoors, we don't get the 59 channels, but we do get 2 uni bands. Uni 5 gives us 24 channels, and Uni 7 gives us 17 channels. But that's if we're going to use 20 megahertz channels. And I'm going to keep this at a pretty high level. If we in Wi-Fi as we know it today, if we go from a 20 megahertz wide channel to a 40 megahertz, and that's really where we kind of live. We don't go much above that usually. Marketing people like to set 80 megabit channels and then megahertz channels, and then advertise those speeds. But every time we do that in Wi-Fi as we know it now, we lose. We raise the noise floor. So we need to have a cleaner signal in order to be able to hear the traffic that's being sent across and get those good speeds. What we get with Wi-Fi 6E is instead of the FCC, and again, this is just in the US, I apologize to the rest of the world. But in the US, what we get with 6E is that the FCC is going to allow us not to use the EIRP, which you don't care what that means. It's just how we are allowed to power things. we get to look at the net EIRP. So if we move from a 20 megahertz to a 40 megahertz or an 80 megahertz wide channel, we get to make up in the power that we can use based on the noise floor. So for every 3 dB that we lose because of the noise, we get to increase the power, meaning that it's net same. So we don't lose the distance. The only way if you can't increase the power, the only way to hear better is to get closer to someone. So we don't lose the range when we go to these wider channels. So what that means really is that in Wi-Fi as we know it today, if we wanted big wide channels, which means we can go faster, we could only do it in smaller cell size. Now we can do it at distance, outdoors. So now we can do really high speed, these 80 megahertz channels, and get and still do it at the same distance that we were able to do the old Wi-Fi. And I think this is going to be what's going to help with the digital divide and getting it, to these rural areas where there's not a lot of density, but they have a real need for these high speed blankets and being able to use these for the backhaul. So what you need now is a vendor to be able to take advantage of this and to be able to clean up the signal and mitigate all of the interference and get it, even if it's not in line of sight, because that's one of the big challenges also with rural. So this is I'm something I'm really looking forward to, and I've got fingers crossed, and I hope I'm right about this.
Who wants to add to that? Cheeber, Curtis?
Yeah, I'd love to jump in. So the Wireless Internet Service Provider Conference that I was one of the last in-person conferences I went to had lots of conversations about what if. Well, one of the things that I talked about and I actually interviewed was some amazing horns for point to point. So I got a sneaky hunch the wireless internet service provider world is going to be jumping on this really fast. And I suspect I'm going to start getting some email from the WISP folks about people that are working on it or getting ready to work on it. But the cool thing is for WISP is that getting in and starting up a WISP is not that hard anymore. And the trick is you still need your backhaul, but backhauls can sometimes be wireless. And having the ability to have these nice big 80 megahertz aggregate channels means I don't have to pay for ungodly expensive fiber for my backhaul anymore. Maybe I can just put up a tower and shoot back to a central location. So that is a rosy future indeed, especially for the people suffering from the digital divide. So crossing my fingers, man.
Point that you've made there, Brian, because right now there is a lot of funding that is available specifically to help solve this problem. We've got the CAF, the Connected America Fund, that's part of the America Rescue Plan Act, and the RDOF money that came out, and we're talking billions of dollars that are out there that are already, some of it's already starting to be distributed, and a lot of it is weighted, so it's going to come out over in a trickle over multiple years. So I think the bulk of the money comes out in the first 6 years, but then there's spending that's allocated out for the next 10 years, and it's designed specifically to help these WISPs. And my heart goes out to WISPs. I have nothing but love for them. I am talking today because of a WISP. They cover, it's only 4% of the U.S. landmass that is covered by what we think of as traditional, the fiber connectivity. WISPs cover 96% of the U.S. landmass. And some of the numbers that get thrown out there, it's sort of funny to realize where they came from to begin with, and that we're still using those numbers, and they're complete and utter BS, if I can use that terminology. The numbers that people use are like 23 million Americans don't have access to high-speed internet. Well, those numbers, that's from 2013, and those are numbers that they got that were self-reported based on what the big service providers were saying. And we all know that they basically took the U.S. map with a green crayon and colored it and said, yeah, we do that. The number is of 23. And by the way, that was they were saying they didn't have access to 10 meg up and 1 meg, or 10 meg down and 1 meg up, which is also a BS number. So I think that it's far closer to it's the numbers. And I'm unscientifically, I'm just going to tell you from looking around at the way the maps, the actual versus the colored maps that I've seen. That number has to be at least 3 times that. And with the people leaving, being able to move out of cities and live wherever they want with a lot of the remote transition that we're seeing, I think that number is actually going to go up much higher. So this is a real problem. And there are real solutions out there with the RDOF and the CAF money out there to help WISPs get into the business or grow their business. And we're seeing that take off in a real way. And I was at a real world in-person conference for that brief moment that we were open this year at WISP America. And there is a lot of conversation about all of this, a lot.
Thank you. Well, it has been a great set of topics here. Thank you guys for all of this. I think it's great, some good information for organizations. They should definitely to listen to this episode. But unfortunately, folks, you've done it again. You said through another hour, the best dang enterprise podcast in the universe. So definitely tune your podcatcher to TWiT. But I do want to thank everyone who makes the show possible, especially to the co-hosts here. They are really the best in the industry, and they really what makes this show possible. I want to start with Ms. Heather Williams. Mo, thanks again for being here. What's going on for you in the coming weeks, and where can people find you?
Well, I'm snarky still at Mo Better Wi-Fi on Twitter. I have my head down most of the time trying to behave myself. Now that I'm with Toronto Wireless, we're out there trying to solve the problem of getting people affordable, high-speed internet, no matter where they are in the world. So doing my bit.
Fantastic. Thanks again for being here. Good cause there too as well. We also have to thank Mr. Curtis Franklin. He's our happy enterprise expert and security expert. What's going on for you in the coming weeks, Curtis, and where can people find you and all of your amazing work?
Well, as I said, I've got lots of research going on and planning for a conference later this month. But I've also got a piece on enterprise security management that I'm writing right now. That'll probably go up first on LinkedIn. So follow me on LinkedIn. I'll point to it on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at KG4GWA, and we'll see what kind of trouble we can get to off in the world of enterprise security management.
Thank you for being here. Well, we also have the Mr. Brian Chee Cheebert. What is going on for you in the coming weeks? Where can people find you and get a hold of you?
Well, same old. But you know what? If you want to take a peek at what happened with WISP, I have an interview with the WISPA chairman, Claude Aiken, back in episode 345. So you might want to check that out. Anyway, we go and throw all kinds of stuff onto Twitter, and I'm ADVNETLAB, Advanced Net Lab. Now, I would love to hear from you. So if Twitter's not your cup of tea, throw me an email. I'm Cheebert, spelled CHEEBERT, at twit.tv. You can also hit all the hosts at TWiT at twit.tv. We'd love to hear from you. Now, I would also love to hear from you as we start heading towards the new year. As I can, I'm going to start scheduling more and more host roundtables. Now, if you have a topic you want us to try and hit, please speak up. The vast majority of you have asked for things on wireless, and that's why I had Mo on. But you know what? There's other things. People have been asking for Kubernetes. People have been asking for management tools. What are you interested in? We'd like to hear that. Anyway, see y'all next week.
Thank you, Cheebert. Well, folks, we also have to thank you as well. You're the person who drops in each and every week to watch and listen to enterprise and IT news, and we want to make it easy for you to watch and get your enterprise and IT news. So go to our show page right now, twit.tv/podcast. TWiT. That's why that you'll find all the amazing back episodes, the show notes, the co-host information, of course, all the links that we do during the show. But more importantly, next to those videos, you'll get helpful subscribe and download links. You know what? Support the show by get your audio version, your video version of your choice, and listen on any one of your devices or any one of your podcast applications, because we're on all of them. So definitely subscribe and support the show. Plus, you may have heard, that's right, Club TWiT. It's a members-only ad-free podcast service with a bonus TWiT Plus feed that you can't really get anywhere else, and it's only $7 per month. And one of my favorite things about Club TWiT is that exclusive members-only Discord channel. We have a bunch of great characters in there, some great channels. We have some live streams. We have the live behind-the-scenes going in there as well. Some really great content, so definitely check it out. Join the Club TWiT and be part of that movement. Go to twit.tv/Club TWiT. Now, Club TWiT now offers corporate group plans. That's right. It's a great way to give your team access to our ad-free tech podcast. The plans start with 5 members at a discounted rate of $6 each per month, and you can add as many seats as you like. That's right. This is a great way for your IT department or developers or tech teams to stay up to date with access to all of our podcasts. And it's just like regular membership. They can join the TWiT Discord channel as a server and get the TWiT Plus bonus feed as well. Sign up at the link above or learn more about Club TWiT at twit.tv/Club TWiT. Now, after you subscribe, you can impress your friends, your family members, and your coworkers. Give them the gift of TWiT. That's right. We talk about some fun tech topics on this show, and you can I'm sure that they'll find it interesting and as well as fun as well. So if you've already subscribed, definitely share it with them. Now, remember, we also do the show live. That's right. We're doing it live right now, 1:30 p.m. Pacific on live.twit.tv. Definitely come see how the pizza's made, the behind the scenes, all the banter we do, all the fun stuff we do during the show. Definitely come watch the live stream because we're on it right now. Plus, if you're going to watch the show live, you can also join our age-old IRC channel as well. There's a great set of in there, so great fun people in there. We get a lot of amazing topics and questions and discussions in there, so definitely check that out. You see them right there: Chemley, Retcon 5, Dick Tech Dino, Loquacious. Everyone's in there. Chicken Head, that's right, love saying Chicken Head on the air. So definitely check it out, irc.twit.tv. We love the chat room, so definitely join them as well. Now you can always follow me, twitter.com/LouMM. There I'll post all my enterprise tidbits. Direct message me if you have some show ideas as well. I'd love to hear about those, or maybe some tech topics you want us to talk about. And of course, I also post a little bit about my work week at Microsoft there as well. You can also always check out developers.microsoft.com. It's a great portal. In fact, that portal is run by one of the teams in our group. So definitely check it out. It's developers.microsoft.com/office. It's a great way to really learn about different ways to customize your Office platform to be more productive for your organization. I do want to thank everyone who makes this show possible, especially to Leo and Lisa. They continue to support This Week in Enterprise Tech each and every week, and we definitely can't do the show without them. So thank you so much for their support over the years. And I also want to thank all the engineers and staff at TWiT. And also thank you one more time to Mr. Brian Chee. That's right. He's not only our co-host, but he's also our tireless producer. He does all the bookings and the plannings for the show, and we couldn't do it without him. So thank you again, Cheebert, for all your support. I also want to thank, before we sign out, we have our editor for today, Mr. Victor B. He's our great editor. He makes us look good after the scenes. So thank you so much, Victor, for all your support. And of course, we have to thank our TD. That's right. He's the talented Mr. Ant Pruitt. That's right. He also does a fabulous show on hands-on photography. And in fact, Cheebert recommended that at the beginning of the show because he has some great topics in the coming weeks. What's going on this week on hands-on photography, Ant?
Well, sir, this week I talked a little bit about that application Glass.photo that's only on iOS right now. And yeah, I think I'm done with it. It's pretty and all, but yeah, I think I'm done with it. So check out the show to find out why I'm done with Glass.photo, twit.tv/hop.
Thank you, Ant. Well, until next time, I'm Louis Maresca, just reminding you, if you want to know what's going on in the enterprise, just keep TWiT.
Have you ever read a tech news story and thought to yourself, man, I would love to talk to the person who wrote this to find out more information? Well, that's exactly what Micah Sargent and I, Jason Howell, do each and every week on Tech News Weekly. We read the stories that matter to us, we reach out to the people making a break in the tech news, and we invite them on to tell their story. And you can find it at twit.tv. Look for Tech News Weekly every Thursday.